What's up, Banter fam? Hope you're having a nice day. Look at this price action from Fantom right now. We finally broke out of this channel. We finally broke to the upside. I drew a trend line in here. It's been a downward slope. We've had a lot of downwards momentum on Fantom recently, but it is breaking to the upside, which is good. So in today's show, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what I'm personally doing with Fantom, my strategy to profit off a Fantom trade. I'll also be showing you some of the catalysts that are actually resulting in this push to the upside, some of the reasons why it's gaining a little bit of momentum over other altcoins, and look into some ways to benefit. I'm back in Australia right now. I'm back streaming in Melbourne, back in the old studio. It's nice to be back. Nice to be back home from my trip in Miami. I had a great time over there, but it's good to be back. Good to be back at home, and we're going to grind over the next few months during this bear market to really come out the other side ahead. And that's the point of these daily shows, to help you guys get well positioned in this bear market to actually come out ahead of this market profitable. Okay, there's a lot to talk about. Let's just get started. Let's get straight into the show. So Fantom, it did break out of this trend. We saw this downward sloping trend. We broke to the upside, and it was actually quite a big move. So it was like an 80% move to the upside. So in a bear market, we do get these bounces. Obviously, Fantom did drop 90% to the downside, but sometimes we do get these massive bounces to the upside, and that is exactly what we saw. So despite the fact we're in a bear market, we are getting some opportunities to land some trades here. Now, this market is tricky for buying and holding, and that's not the strategy I'm going to be preaching in today's video. In today's video, I'll be showing you a little bit more on the swing trading side, how we can keep the dollars ticking over even though the market overall is bearish. So just to reiterate, I'm not telling you to buy an ape into Fantom and hold it for 5 years. We have to trade momentum in this market, and that is something I'm doing right now. So let's get straight into my strategy for actually doing that using Fantom, which is one of my favorite ecosystems, regardless of the price action. All right. It all starts with Bitcoin. The entire market right now is hinging on Bitcoin. And as we know, Bitcoin is hinging on the NASDAQ. So Bitcoin opened a little bit weaker than I would have liked this week. We saw the pump on Sunday leading into the NASDAQ. We thought that the S&P might have a slight gain on Monday, but what happened was that the stocks actually opened fairly flat. So we saw some of the gains that were being preempted in by the crypto market and Bitcoin actually be wiped out slightly on Monday. So it wasn't a huge drawdown, 3.8% down for the day, but we are still in this range. And that is just the reality of the situation right now. We are in this choppy range right now, and I've drawn some horizontal lines to help visualize the range that we're in. And we're seeing for the past week or so, we're literally bouncing up, down, up, down, up, down in this range. And we can see that the range from bottom to high is actually roughly 8%. And on the way down, this range is another 7% down. So we're seeing we're in a range right now. So we have to play this market accordingly. Now, this isn't the market, as I said before, that I'm just buying and holding for a year. That's not really my strategy right now. I don't think this is the greatest time for DCA entries, maybe on some alts like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sol, like your safer alts. But right now, something like a Fantom, it still is fairly risky at $1 billion market cap. So we have to look at the range that we're in order to dictate what we're going to do with our Fantom trade. So remember, if you buy at the bottom of this range and Bitcoin goes up, let's say 7%, then you're going to get a gain in the altcoins of maybe 30, 40, 50%. In Fantom's case, bottom to top of this range actually resulted in an 82% trade. So anyone that opened a trade during that range and bought the bottom of the range actually ended up profiting. So obviously you have to set your stop losses, and you got to make sure that if we break this trend that you're not exposing yourself to downside risk. But knowing where we are, knowing where we're sitting in terms of how we're ranging is an important factor for substantiating these alt trades. All right, let's look into some fundamentals. Let's look into some of the reasons why Fantom's pumping, why I think the momentum is shifting a little bit, and then I'll tell you my strategy more in depth in terms of trading this thing and also my DCA strategy long term, because Fantom is still a bag that I want to accumulate long term. We just have to be a little more creative in the ways that we actually accumulate tokens right now, as obviously the alt environment isn't conducive to this simply DCAing, buying and holding strategy, in my opinion. Okay, let's get straight into it. So the Fantom Foundation actually announced a new stablecoin, and off the back of the stuff that happened with UST, we are seeing many other protocols come out and launch their own stablecoins. But what Fantom's doing is a little bit different, and I kind of like how they're pivoting towards this stablecoin model. So let me explain what the stablecoin is and why it's causing a little bit of a pump right now. So FUSD is the name of a new stablecoin that is going to be launched on the Fantom network. They did have a previous attempt at a stablecoin, which the foundation abandoned. They didn't really pay much attention to it. So we saw that the peg on that stablecoin did get lost and it hasn't really maintained peg for a while. But they're introducing a new mechanic for FUSD. They're really prioritizing it now because I think the foundation sees a little bit of a gap in the market. After the failure of UST, they see maybe there's an opportunity now, a little more market cap available for a new stablecoin to come in and perform well. But it is very different from UST. So the mechanics that we saw that led to the UST failure are completely different on the Fantom side at the moment. So let's look into the differences and why it could be a good stablecoin, its positives, its negatives, and how Fantom's actually going to roll this out. So FUSD is an over-collateralized stablecoin. So it's similar to DAI. So it's not fully algorithmic like UST and Luna, which used a burning mechanism to keep the UST to peg. FUSD is over-collateralized, so it's backed by staked Fantom. Obviously, this relies on the Fantom price to hold a certain level. So if Fantom went to zero, the stablecoin obviously wouldn't perform. But this still means it has tangible backing, unlike something like a UST, which had nothing backing it. So users can create FUSD by borrowing it against their staked Fantom. So what you'll be able to do is stake your Fantom, use that staked Fantom, and using your Fantom that you put up, you can then borrow FUSD against it. So you're putting up your Fantom as collateral. I think it's to an LTV, so a loan to value ratio of 50%. And then on the other side, you can use that to redeem FUSD, which is the stablecoin pegged to the US dollar 1-to-1. So if the value of Fantom goes below the minimum collateral ratio, then the Fantom is progressively auctioned off to users who bid using FUSD. So this is the mechanism that the foundation is running with in order to keep the peg here. An in-depth blog post is going to come out soon, which details the mechanism, but I did a little bit of digging and I found out how this works a little bit more. So OTW Fantoman did a nice FUSD thread. He explains it like a 5-year-old can understand. I'm going to run through this and break down what FUSD actually is in its essence before the foundation comes out and does their more detailed post. Because right now, we don't have all the information, but I've done a little bit of digging and I found out a little bit more about FUSD. So one, the most important thing to note is that it doesn't have a death spiral mechanic like UST because minting's limited and it's over collateralized. So something about UST is it wasn't collateralized. There was nothing tangible backing it apart from some Bitcoin reserves, which were insubstantial compared to the total market cap of UST. Whereas Fantom is over collateralized. So there's more collateral. So there's more assets backing up the amount of USD in circulation compared to the total market cap of that USD. So like Aave, Scream is a borrowing and lending platform on Fantom, and you can put in your Bitcoin ETH Fantom as collateral and borrow other stables. So when your collateral price drops below the collateral ratio, it'll liquidate to prevent bad debt. So it will automatically liquidate, be auctioned off to auctioners who bid using FUSD. Now you can use staked Fantom to borrow FUSD. So the whole mechanism of this stablecoin is using staked Fantom. So $300 worth of staked Fantom can borrow up to 100 FUSD. So OTW here is implying that it will only have a 33% liquidation ratio, LTV. So you won't be able to borrow up to 100%. So if you stake $1,000 worth of Fantom, it'll only let you borrow $300 worth of USD. And what this is doing is it's to prevent liquidations. Otherwise, what's going to happen is people are going to put up 1,000 Fantom, and let's say the LTV was 80%, they'd get $800 worth of USD, and then what would happen is if the Fantom price dropped 20%, then they'd be liquidated. So Fantom's trying to avoid this by going with a lower LTV limit. So if the Fantom price drops over the collateral ratio of the staked Fantom borrower, it will be liquidated as Fantom. And this is obviously to prevent bad debt, as I just explained. So these are the pros. These are the pros of FUSD. So if it can survive the stress test, it'll be the future blue chip stablecoin, according to OTW. So I do think there is room for another quote unquote blue chip stablecoin. UST did leave a little bit of a gap in the market. I think that it potentially has the potential to be one of those prominent stablecoins. Obviously, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge. It's too early to come out and say whether it will be a raging success or a raging failure, but I do think it has large potential. So people from UST vibes will probably pay more attention to help corner use cases. And if the mechanics fail, it will fail fast. So obviously there are negatives, there are positives to this, but I do think overall, Fantom pivoting down this angle is good because it gives more utility to Fantom. Because think about this. If FUSD gets minted, you're going to need to stake your Fantom. That will result in more Fantom being locked up because staked Fantom is required to be locked in order to mint or borrow against to get FUSD. So it's very important for the Fantom token itself because it gives another use case. And any time that we can implement real utility, a real use case to a token, that's amazing. That's a great thing for the token itself. Because when you think about it, Fantom right now its main value accrual mechanism is its gas fees, which are extremely low. So protocol revenue, although fairly high in respect to its market cap, it isn't as high as some other projects, for example, Ethereum. So having extra use cases, like utilizing the staked Fantom mechanics, not only to earn yield, but then to be able to borrow USD, is a real world use case, which I like. But it's not the only reason why Fantom pumped. Because what happened is Fantom Foundation came out and they actually did an article which identified some of the key features of this Fantom mint. And something very big came from this. And people realized that there was a contributor, Andre Cronje, who was actually the author of the governance draft of the Fantom USD V2. So the reason it's V2 is because this is the new version of the stablecoin with a new mechanic, of which Andre Cronje seems to be one of the lead developers, or at least one of the lead advisors on this project. Now, his latest commit was 4 days ago. We can see this on GitHub. So it's all on the blockchain. It's all public. And we can see that Andre is actually actively contributing to Fantom. Now, this did cause a pump, because a lot of people are now saying Andre's back, Andre's back. Even I did a tweet saying Andre's back. But let me give you a little bit of a context into this and what I think about Andre actually being back. And the truth is he never left. I think it was a major misconception amongst the market that Andre, for some reason, had just abandoned Fantom, and him taking a break from crypto meant that he was never coming back again. I mean, clearly that's false. He was always advising for Fantom. He even said in his latest interview that he would continue to advise for Fantom. Andre was one of the original GitHub committers of the original code. He was one of the first people to actually create its consensus mechanism. So Andre has always been involved. Andre has always been involved with advising the Fantom Foundation. And obviously, when it came to FUSD, the foundation wanted him involved because Andre is one of the best developers in the world. People call him the godfather of DeFi. He's extremely talented. He's a DeFi visionary. Yes, some of the solidly debacle kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths. But at the end of the day, he's a great dev. So any way that Fantom could get him involved in a new stablecoin project is brilliant. He's a great coder. For example, Solidly was fantastic code. Really, really good code. So having Andre helping out with FUSD is a major bullish catalyst, and that is why we did see a 14% rise for the week. Now, yes, Fantom's down a lot from highs. I'm not shying away from that. Like, it's down 90%. It's down a lot. However, we got to look at momentum in this market. We have to look at what projects are breaking the tide a little bit. So if we look at Fantom, it is actually up 14%. And looking at the weekly for all the other alts, there's no other alt that's doing this right now. So it is substantial. I had people commenting before saying, oh, it's down 90%. It doesn't matter if it's up 14%. Well, the truth is it does matter, because when something pumps like this in a bear market, that is massive, massive news. Like 14% in this market clearly is a major pump. And that indicates that there's a little bit of momentum shifting. The narrative has been away from Fantom for a long time. After Andre left, there was a lot of FUD. But I can sense the tide shifting a bit. As someone that frequents Twitter all day and goes on social media all day, I can see the tide shifting. I can see the sentiment shifting a little bit. So this may open up the door for some swing trades, and that is the point of this video. So what other catalysts are actually causing this pump? Because it wasn't just Andre. It's actually Snapsync. And Snapsync was a kind of update that happened to Fantom's middleware that came out in May, at the start of May. But we didn't really see the full effects of it come to fruition until now. Because what Snapsync actually was, is it was a performance upgrade allowing new nodes to join and sync to the network faster. So what this actually does is it lowers the amount of congestion on the network, aka lowering gas, and it also increases the amount of transaction volume that the network can handle without substantially increasing the gas fees. So what the foundation is doing right now, what the Fantom Foundation is doing, is they're working towards FVM, which is their big middleware upgrade. They're replacing the Ethereum virtual machine with a custom FVM, Fantom virtual machine. But until then, because that's still likely 1 or 2 years away, it's been delayed. In the meantime, they are putting forth these minor upgrades to kind of start building the blocks towards FVM. So a lot of people think when FVM comes, Fantom will pump, but I don't think it's as linear as that. I think that over time, we're going to see some of the implementations gradually coming into the market, gradually launching, and this will systematically increase Fantom's performance over time before FVM. And obviously, once that comes, if it's a success, that will be fantastic for the tech. But Snapsync was one of these first major upgrades that we got on the path to FVM. And what we saw as a result is extremely low gas. So gas yesterday, when I clocked it, was 28 Gwei. If you guys don't know, that's extremely low for Fantom. That is, considering Fantom's gas fees, like 0.001 cents or something if you were doing a swap. Very, very low gas. One of the lowest gases out of any chain right now. And that's because of this Snapsync upgrade. But the more interesting thing about this low gas that I found was what transaction volume it was against. Because yes, gas is low, and a few people were commenting and they were saying, well, gas is low because Fantom isn't doing any transactions anymore. Like, obviously, when less people are using the network, the gas will be lower. But that's wrong, because Fantom is actually doing some of its highest transaction volume that I've seen in Fantom's history. It did 1 million transactions yesterday. It did almost 1 million transactions today. And this massive spike in transactions has not caused the gas to increase. So that is a testament to Snapsync. That's a testament to the upgrades that the team is doing. And at the end of the day, when we're seeing high transaction volume and low gas, that's an indicator that the tech is improving. So it's not as simple as less transactions, less gas. No, more transactions, less gas. And the Gwei does fluctuate. I think 30 was extremely low at the moment. When I woke up, it was 200. It's saying 500 now. It does fluctuate in this range, but it's still pretty low. So I'm happy with how the network's operating as a user. That's, I guess, why it's the DeFi chain. I guess that's why a lot of people flock towards Fantom in the beginning. Now, this isn't a bullish case to tell you guys to buy Fantom. This isn't me coming on and saying ape, 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 because right now, frankly, I think it's irresponsible to be DCAing and hodling projects that are risky, like Fantom, at $1 billion market cap for the long term. And I'm just being completely honest. The strategy of buying and hodling these altcoins is kind of dead at the moment. And that is not the strategy I'm going for. Yes, I keep a bag because I am a proponent that Fantom is great tech, and I think it will do very well in the future. I work closely with Fantom projects. I know the team very well. I'm very involved in the ecosystem. So I do understand what is being built. But at the same time, I don't think this environment is right for buying and holding. I'll just be completely honest. And that's why, although I've been adding a little bit to my Fantom bags, this isn't me aping and holding for the long term. So what can we do in the meantime before we get those entries? Well, we can still take advantage of these swings. Like Fantom's up 14% for the week against a downwards market. So if you had bought that bottom, you would have ridden Fantom up 80% to the top. Now, the question is, how can we find the bottoms? How do we know when the bottoms actually are in this market? Because things fluctuate so quickly. Well, I've done a little bit of charting to kind of work that out. So let's go back to this Bitcoin chart for a little bit. So we can see that we are ranging. So if you're following the strategy of trading this range, trading the chop, then opening up positions in the 28.6K range is decent risk reward in my opinion. But obviously when Bitcoin goes up 7% from the low to the high of this range, then we're going to see projects like Fantom pump harder. So the projects with the momentum, the projects with the sentiment are the projects that will pump harder on the way up. And that's why I'm doing this video today, because I think there is a little bit of a narrative shift in the market now. And I want to make sure that you guys, if you are opening trades, you're in the projects that have the sentiment behind them. And Fantom is one of those. So it's a decent trade right now if you can trade this thing. So what I'm thinking of doing, and what I've been doing in terms of trading this range, is I've been buying the bottom of the range and selling the top of the range. So if you had done this, you would have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chances to profit on buys and shorts, or buys, sells at the top, and then rebuys at the bottom. So you would have had 8 chances to profit of a 7% swing. And some of these alts, they went up 30, 40% during this period as well. So trading in the ranges is not a bad thing to do right now whilst this market is boring. Obviously, you have to consider how much of your portfolio you want to trade with. But let's say Bitcoin goes to the bottom of this range here or breaks below to these lows. That's potentially another 2% downside. I see this Fantom trend potentially coming down and testing this trend line. So if Bitcoin goes down 2%, Fantom probably goes down 5 to 8%. That's typically what we see from these alts. And this horizontal line, which has been support and resistance, that's potentially a level we could look at for an entry, which is the 40-cent mark, which lines up with the charts. Obviously, this lines up with a Bitcoin price of 28,600. Now, this isn't the exact entry I'm going for because you have to look at multiple things like the stock market. You have to look at multiple things like what is happening in the macro environment, which obviously, if something happens and the Fed announces some crazy rate hike, then yes, we can just smash right through this and go down to 24K. Like, it's a bear market, guys. We have to preach risk management here. But you can still trade in a bear market. There's no one telling you can't profit in a bear market. You just can't profit off the ways we used to. And what I used to do is I used to buy Fantom and hold it and farm it. Well, I'm still doing that with a small percentage of my portfolio. For full transparency, 7% of my hodl portfolio is in Fantom, a small percentage. So if Fantom went to 0, I'm not getting hit. I'm not getting wrecked. It's only 7%. but I still am utilizing some of these trades at the moment. So yes, that's the kind of range I'm looking at, the 40-cent range. And I think if we do get another swing, there is potential upside here. As we saw, we did break out of this long-term trend. We are coming down and we're retesting this trend line. We're retesting this range here. I think if you can buy Fantom in this range, this 35 to 40 cent range, that's a decent trade. And I think my price target on the trade is probably 60 to 75 cents. We see there's a lot of resistance in the 78 region. So if Bitcoin did have a push up, let's say to 32K, then potentially 75 cents is on the cards. And we still have the bottoms in place of 25 cents. So that is the range we're looking at right now. We are going to get decent entries for a trade, but at the same time, guys, make sure you set your stop loss. If you're entering Fantom here and Bitcoin's at the bottom of the range, set your stop loss just below. So maybe set it at 37. It depends on obviously how much leverage you're using and all that sort of stuff. But guys, just be smart in this market because now is not the time to be buying and hodling these altcoins. I'm going to be completely honest, and that is exactly what I want to do on these shows. I want to tell you what I'm doing. If I'm trading, I'm going to tell you I'm trading. If I'm selling, I'm going to tell you I'm selling. Like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to be completely honest and kind of tell you guys exactly what I'm doing in this market. But there is some nice stuff happening on Fantom. Now, in terms of the ecosystem, it did get hit. Got hit a lot harder than some of the other projects. Oh, someone just asked here, can someone tell me the price? I can barely see it on my phone. Just quickly. And yeah, if you can't see it, the bottom of the Bitcoin range is 28,600. The bottom, this Fantom horizontal line I've drawn in is roughly 40 cents. I'd be trading the alts off Bitcoin though. I think Bitcoin is still the primary indicator of this market. So I wouldn't necessarily chart an alt chart on its own in isolation. I think I'm still charting the Bitcoin chart for any of my alt entries. But what I was saying before is the ecosystem did take a bigger hit. So maybe if you're scaling into a Fantom position on a trade, let's say you're putting in, I don't know, 3% of your portfolio into a Fantom trade, maybe put 0.3%, so a tenth of that into some of the alts if you wanted to maybe take advantage of some of the swings, because we know the alts do pump harder when the market goes up. They also drop more when the market goes down. So we just have to be smart in this market right now. That is the main message of this video. Be smart, implement risk management, make sure you set your stop losses on trades. And if you are buying and hodling, make sure you're doing so with enough dry powder on the side to take advantage of dips, because I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin hits 24K. This is a bear market, so let's treat it as such. Now, if you do want to trade Fantom, you can do so on 1inch. They're an official show sponsor. They're one of the official show partners. They're a great DEX, very, very cheap rates. And they actually do have Fantom compatibility. So if you do want to set a limit order here, you can set a limit order using a DEX, which will aggregate for the best yield, and you can do so on 1inch. So I do think 1inch is a great place to do this. But I want to answer your questions because I see a lot of questions coming in the chat right now. So if you want to ask a question, I'm going live on my Instagram now. So everyone, if you want to ask a question, hang out with me for a little bit. I'll be answering all your questions over on Instagram. So there's a link in the description. Come into the link in the description below and we will talk. I will have a bit more of an extended discussion on what I just talked about. So yeah, join me on Instagram right now. Let's go live. And I hope you're having a lovely day. Peace out.